Subcommittee will come to order. Today, we welcome the new Attorney General, William Barr, before the subcommittee. As the Attorney General during the George H.W. Bush administration, he has testified before this committee in the past, but this is his first time in quite a while. Welcome and congratulations to your new and old position, sir. We also welcome Assistant Attorney General for Administration Lee Loftus. Because Attorney General Barr was not confirmed when this year's budget proposal was largely formulated, he has asked that the Assistant Attorney General be allowed to join him at the table to answer some of the nuts and bolts questions that we will ask regarding the budget. This year, we have held several hearings with components of the department, including the FBI, the ATF, the Civil Rights Division, and the Executive Office for Immigration Review. I appreciate the willingness of the department to come and testify before our subcommittee, even though we may have different opinions on different issues. Let me take a moment to describe some concerns prompted by those hearings. We have heard what appears to be a lack of commitment to the department's traditional mission to defend civil rights, disability rights, and prevent discrimination. We have discussed what appears to be a clear animus towards policies that protect individuals' health care, voting rights, access to education, and much, much more. We have discussed the need for additional resources to address gun violence in this country, while at the same time hearing ATF say that the budget request would result in staffing reductions. We have talked to the head of the Executive Office for Immigration Review about the need to protect due process and fairness in our immigration courts and the many policy changes that make such goals more difficult to achieve. We have heard the FBI describe the threats to our nation faces, but also that their budget request will not fully fund their efforts to address those threats. As we discuss the departments today, we're faced with a budget request that fails to address many of these concerns and raises new problems. And of course, Mr. Attorney General, we could not hold this hearing without mentioning the elephant in the room, and I'm not referring to my colleagues on the other side. 2.5 weeks ago, the Mueller report was completed in extremely quick fashion. You turned a 300-plus page report into a 4-page letter that supposedly summarized the findings. Last week, the New York Times reported that the special counsel's office had already created summary documents that were ignored in your letter, and that some investigators within the special counsel's office felt that within the special counsel's office, the summary understates the level of malfeasance by the president and several of his campaign and White House advisors. The American people have been left with many unanswered questions, serious concerns about the process by which you formulated your letter, and uncertainty about when we can expect to see the full report. I believe the American people deserve to see the full report and to be trusted to make our own determinations on the merits based on what the special counsel has presented. Mr. Attorney General, if there's one thing I would like to leave with you today, something you already know, but just my role to remind you, is that this Congress voted unanimously to see that report, that the Congress and the committees of jurisdiction want to see the report, and that the American people want to see the report. I think it would strike a serious blow to our system and, yes, to our democracy if that report is not fully seen. And when it comes to redactions, we would hope that you could tell us when something is redacted, or if you feel it has to be, what area it covered, not just a blackout that doesn't tell us where it came from and why it might have been redacted. We're not here today to be in a confrontational situation with you. We want to help you do your job, and you need to help us do ours. But what cannot happen is that somebody higher than you tells you that you don't have to answer our questions or you don't have to deal with us at all. That's not who we are as a country. That's not who we are as a democracy. That's not who we are as an Appropriations Committee. So let me just say that since 2017, our nation's Justice Department has too often failed to meet the needs of the American people. I hope that with your ascension to Attorney General, we can work together to change that. Attorney General Barr, in your confirmation hearings, you said you believed it very important that results of the special counsel Mueller's investigation be shared with Congress and the public. We agree on that. FBI Director Wray, the nation's top counterintelligence investigator, told us last week he had not read the special counsel's report. My question is, with regard to your March 24th and 29th letters to the Judiciary Committees, did Special Counsel Mueller or anyone on his team, have a role in drafting them or reviewing them in advance? Did you use any of the summary documents prepared by the Special Counsel in drafting these documents?
24th and 29th. On the letter of the 24th, Mr. Mueller's team did not play a role in drafting that document, although we offered him the opportunity to review it before we sent it out, and he declined that. The letter on the 29th, I don't believe that that was reviewed by Mr. Mueller or that they participated in drafting that letter. But to go back to something you said in your opening statement about the availability of the report, as I've said, as you pointed out, since my confirmation, I do think it's important that the public have an opportunity to learn the results of the special counsel's work. And I said then that I would work diligently to make as much information public as I could and available to Congress as I could. You will recognize that I'm operating under a regulation that was put together during the Clinton administration and does not provide for the publication of the report, but I am relying on my own discretion to make as much public as I can. Now, in my letter of the March 29th, I identified 4 areas that I feel should be redacted, and I think most people would agree. The first is grand jury information, 6E material. The second is information that the intelligence community believes would reveal intelligence sources and methods. The third are information in the report that could interfere with ongoing prosecutions. You will recall that the special counsel did spin off a number of cases that are still being pursued, and we want to make sure that none of the information in the report would impinge upon either the ability of the prosecutors to prosecute the cases or the fairness to the defendants. And finally, we intend to redact information that implicates the privacy or reputational interests of peripheral players where there is a decision not to charge them. Right now, the special counsel is working with us on identifying information in the reports that fall under those 4 categories. We will color code the excisions from the report, and we will provide explanatory notes describing the basis for each redaction. So, for example, if a redaction is made because of a court order in a pending prosecution, we'll state that, and we will distinguish between the various categories. This process is going along very well, and my original timetable of being able to release this by mid-April stands. And so I think that from my standpoint, within a week, I will be in a position to release the report to the public, and then I will engage with the chairman of both judiciary committees about that report and about any further requests that they have.
So let me just get one thing clear for the record. My concern during my opening statement that when you redact something, we should know what area it falls under. That you say will happen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Your March 24th letter indicated that some actions the special counsel investigated as potentially raising obstruction of justice concerns had not been publicly reported. Will these actions be identified in the report sent to Congress?
As things stand now, I don't think that they will be redacted, so they will be identifiable.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Attorney General, in your testimony, you said violent crime has declined since 2016. But as we learned from the FBI, homegrown violent extremism has grown over the same time. What priority and resources have you included in the 2020 budget to counter such violent extremism?
I don't think we break out. Maybe you can help me, Lee. I don't think we break out the budget targeting that particular category of offense.
We do not have a separate category for violent extremism, but we do pursue all matters of violent crime together. And we have the $138 million and 135 new positions for our violent crime efforts. In the FBI, we're adding 47 new FBI agents to the FBI for a variety of new initiatives. And among them is the FBI's work on violent extremism.
Okay, it's important for this committee to know at a certain point how many folks will be assigned to this or how many dollars will be assigned to it, because it is an issue that concerns all Americans, I believe, and we need to deal with it in a proper way.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, but you know, the people who are on the watch for this kind of thing, whether they be FBI agents or U.S. attorneys pursuing potential cases, are the very same people that would also be looking at other forms of terrorism potentially. So it's hard to allocate exactly the dollars by that category. But, you know, obviously it is a serious issue, and it's one that the FBI devotes a lot of effort to.
Well, as long as we know that the department, the agency is looking at it, is dealing with it, is taking it seriously, we can then work together on it. That's the easier part.
Mr. Chairman, if I can add a bit more, we do have in the FBI's budget this year, we have the $16 million for the FBI's participation in the National Vetting Center with other federal entities, and that helps the FBI look closely at individuals who may be coming to the United States. So we have that vetting money in the FBI. We also have $4 million in the Office of Justice Programs on grants that go towards looking at extremism and domestic terrorism.
Good. A few weeks ago, the ATF Director Brandon told us that the department's fiscal year 2020 budget request would result in ATF being forced to let go more than 300 staff due to increasing investigatory costs. As we seek to address rising gun violence in this nation, how can the department justify a proposal that will result in fewer resources dedicated to that goal?
Well, let me just say first that I'm a huge fan of ATF. I think they're an outstanding agency, and I would love, you know, any money spent on the ATF is well worth it. One of the common themes I hear from U.S. attorneys is how valuable the ATF agents are, and their technology is just outstanding in helping to deal with gun violence and violent crime. Now, I am told that the statement made by Mr. Brandon was actually based on faulty information, and we don't think that it would lead to we are asking for more money for ATF, and we don't think it would result in fewer agents, but, you know, maybe Lee could help me with that.
Sure. So I think very highly of the ATF chief. I've known him for years. We've worked together very, very closely. We took a hard look at his budget. This year's budget will increase ATF by 3.9%. actually just about 4%. It does have increases for ATF. If you look back over the last 3 years, we've given an 8.7% increase to ATF. So we do think ATF is important. We are trying to support ATF. I know the ATF chief is very concerned about his agency. His budget is susceptible to absorbing inflationary increases, and if the pay raise isn't funded or if his rents or contracts go up, he's very concerned about that, and he's worried that it'll translate into a loss of staff. I can tell you that we have looked at this year's budget, though, and at the 4% increase we're asking for, we don't think that translates into loss of hundreds of staff. And our commitment is that we want to work closely with ATF, make sure they have what they need. As the Attorney General says, any resources ATF receives, I think, will be put to very good use. But we're committed to working closely with the ATF folks to make sure they make it through the year. And again, a 4% increase on this budget, we think is a strong request for ATF, strong request for their NIBIN system, the $11 million for that. There's $4 million for their Spartan case management system. So we are trying to stand behind ATF in this budget.
Well, I would hope that you can get this issue resolved in terms of letting us know what really is going on, because as we put together the bill, and that will happen pretty soon, you know, I need to be able to go to this young woman on my right and tell her I need more money for certain agencies. And we can't do this if they're saying they're going to lose over 300 folks, and you'll say they're not, or that it's not. We need that picture cleared up.
Absolutely, and we'll help you.
Attorney General, before I close, just going to make a very personal statement. Like so many people in this House, I grew up politically in the 60s. That's where I developed a lot of my feelings about things in our great country. And we were a group of people trying to make the country even better than it was, knowing that it was great at all times. And it's still great. But whenever things got rough with segregated housing or education issues or civil rights issues or voting rights issues, we knew there was always a Justice Department we could turn to. We always knew that that Justice Department would defend the law and therefore defend the people and somehow come through for us. It's very troublesome to see a Justice Department against the law of the land when there are many people who, if not liking the whole law, certainly like the pre-existing conditions provision, the ability to keep their child on their plan till that person's 26. And so I hope that if you take something from here today, since we took a lot from you in information, is to maybe look around and realize or pay more attention to the fact that we lean on you to come through for this country. And when we see you taking sides against the law of the land, or taking sides that we may not think is in the best interest of the American people, it troubles us. Nevertheless, we want to thank you for your testimony today, for your patience with the time, and I think I want to thank my committee members on both sides, Mr. Adderholt. It was a great hearing, great attendance, and I'm sure your picture is somewhere in the files today. Thank you so much, Mr. Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Meeting is adjourned.